Let us bow our heads and pray. Nate God again God. Aganho ara hunlo na hunitsen. Eche hot inaben hiketesleo. Unzaken hios kartendla. Creature. Hans sagoshin. Inaben an hintken. And the Kro Hajo Painitsen creature. Doyonit era Naharashke. A hot end is at a Ndail Zihibin a change era husband. The hot era had a hate zither, the hot era. Big head and it is in the Ben Hahun and Doan Hibeta the Hunitsen. Shishing a hunchta. 11 na, what do you need? Lansanta. 11 na, what's the Lanson washing? She takes Arthur. And the Ahanehi, Atanda e can't Lanson. Ahanehi, Nahans and go Koro. Nahanans or Nepahit and Leni. Nihin sick case on his J. Koro. Naha had it lego. Coronas nanit esa. Holodo, Puchiala, Elnitla Sata. Inte hotsa ebetanit, Nedo Bacatsadil Sansa. Eben Yahronch at the seat, it's a hotsa and his sin date no. The nature jo and it el coronas. Another neat edo less Nihinat a holong coron hidden abanel at obanel in the sheep and nature. Ne, you had a nabbage in the hint, narrow and shin hitch in the hint, not the satter. Even nature. Pro hajon today case go hajo. Not a hagish at a deal, Nathan needs and on a big ear deal together. And the satter sad or hot or sad the heat, Nathan de. Ocean, but not a ohido as a Nathan Anna. The nation Tana case over nation had a gibbet zeal or she had on us, but I is neat or less. A share indeed need of hot. And then hard, so league on hard is in the dog at con. I saw nachait hot Hatziko Ebichin, a hole just or Hashin. Lanans and Igishim Bicanada had it on and laid all less. I don't think I can't need any get hope a neat ancient or less on hidden net. I say, had your pines and put over here had us data. It's an established had us data. Kro Nahat Agi Pesa the Hishi Taba on Lenigin Ha Nika deal was so Hajo has a deal Nilana Ella Ashhorn Hikan again. Nehinant I Nahabasta President Nez, Vice President Lizer, Speaker Damon, Beshmahas Anart Wana Dean Dinko. Ndad Nashido, Washington, Never Washington, Yanda, Lishi, Nahabachi Napa, Yat Eho. Estate Nisto Leto, Yat Eho. Corona si Catole. Nahalchin Habaton Lashon, Nihdigan Leni. And that Nihisallad and his and as Twido Sanid and Habajin at Button Latishin, Ad Hayard and the Has Hado with the Hatsido. Say had at the start, Sihigishi a Walyada. Then sick case be Hundle Ashore, Yat Eho in nature, the night of the cotton lane or left or Bain Yat Eho de East et or left. Ashin Hodate a Hans Sagoshin. Ian she ben Nashan. Con Nate Hanas Nehida ben Nashan. Hans Sagoshin Heinstein, Nihin sick case. Though Qui Yossen that had been Nadashin Horod and Lessar day Nihans Sagoshin. Yegon Hinash Nishinle. Nihits Anja Hundle on Hanan. Nihits Anja Hundle in Zago. Royat Eho. Not the cotton laid or less. Nahajin, but on how Holiash or a creature. A head need again, Lenido, but as art Ergoshin, Minchin Soladils and Ben hido ben hoholni ta annet eben holni nihidigen leni. And they had neither on hatin anige hun zaten hios carton. Hun sawain job by the need on yet national Jesus Christ. Amen. Kashenos Nana introductions. Colossians and Honorable Vice Chair Walker.
Chairman, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Chairman and committee members. The presenters for today and the listening audience that we have. Thomas Walker Jr., age. Although I represent Luke, Tulani Lake, Bird Springs, Cameron, and Coal Mine chapters out here in Western Regency. Although I don't know Shinhinch be between Bashin, Twatso ne is Chedada. Sadish gives me national. I could echo no care. So there's the indication on Darko about Henson, just as needle. Not Annie, Hotodils and yo be Betsy, love it. I could echo. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Vice Chair Walker. Honorable Gay. Honorable Daniels.
Hello. Mr.
Yes.
Chair, can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Hello. Good morning, colleagues. Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I'm just making sure. What do you I see from John Gokudo? Yeah. Good morning, Hita Shnedo. Today is a beautiful day here in Old Jato. Dash Tindon Santa Benny, Jitle. I see here, Kudo. I don't know, Kudo. So there's no my brother, chairman, Kudo, Juno, honorable chairman, Kudo, Juno. So there's no behind see, so Kudo, and been any 8 or less Kudo beach. I don't know, it's kind of which it. Juno go, because the whole G store letter comes up here. Nothing in Canada. I don't know what they had to say. So then, what I don't know Inchi Herman Daniels Jr. I don't know Inchkin gave it any. There's a son of us chain. I got the Hodash and Nella, toy head lean, that's what say, what I did then. The way old Jay, Fluffy Kendo, now just on a panache. What I need to do. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Honorable Daniels. Honorable Freeland. Honorable Stewart.
Okay, good morning tonight. Those and I don't that is Aros to change Mr. Tahi out on the one staff and nothing to so. And then Water Rights Commission group should take Mr. Hilford, Honorable Hilford, so yeah, they share a Wilson C. Stewart Jr. A and yeah, the puts on the A and Sle, non is education, a passes chain, catching that should trade up in between the Chanella. I don't tell that need to question that so though could base pass and tell all the can cheat when it's on the Jada. Could I be best pass and I don't the 45 agents represent for the Research Development Committee. Though cash not so then behind this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Stewart. Let's go to staff now. Mr. Tahi.
Good morning, Chair, member of RDC, and those on the line. My name is Rodney Tahi. I'm the Legislative Advisor for RDC. I'm Kiani and Senja Kine, and I'm originally from Steamboat, Arizona. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Tahi. So far, you're doing a really good job. Mr. Tahi, you're doing a good job as our advisor. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, that's right, Chair. Good morning. RDC members, yat pen ada shiron yat enti shniro le she ya koroni da de si to tapa ha in shnoro betligen bashish chin ki an eta chedo tsna geneta shnala ahot o ya sanen shnedo le hoye de go steamboat de go in a sha na legislative assistant in shlo legislative services the nashnesto Teresa Woody Egin she hot on each that has seen dolly. I don't done Junico Nahato Nadines and chair here la but what about hens and here but on each has dolly. Mr. Chair, back to you.
Thank you. I believe Ms. Khan is very busy with drafting legislation. She sent us an email. We have had one of our attorneys, I believe, that retired, and one of them that left to DOJ too a few months ago. So we're very short on attorneys at OLC, and they have like 180 legislations that are backlog. And if we need an attorney to get on the call, then we'll contact them. But so far, we'll just do our best to have these meetings. So. Speaker's office, Ms. Yako.
Hi, good morning, Chairman Nez and members of the Resources and Development Committee. My name is Melinda Arbizo Siako, Legislative Staff Assistant for the Office of the Speaker here in Window Rock, Arizona. Thank you for having us on the call today.
Thank you, Ms. Yako. Water Rights Commissioners, Madam Chair, Ashley.
Oh, Yate Chair, this is Jolyn Ashley. Good morning, everyone. Yate Bina. Happy to be on the call this morning. Good morning to those on the call as well. I'm Jolyn Ashley. I represent Copper Mine Chapter. I'm the Western Agency Commissioner, and look forward to the call this morning. Hope everyone's doing good. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Ashley. Mr. Sandoval.
Oh, yeah, the pension on tie. Yeah, it's in high lounge, you know. I hate the needs and what plus she was chained to the Chinese and not clean shade that. Yeah, you know, not all panic. She, but again, it's our soldier. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sandoval. Mr. Davis Filfred, Honorable Filfred.
Good morning, Chair, members of Resource Development Committee, staff, and everybody that's on the line. Yat eto ben ado nikhet hati anigi bigite ado kodo Navajo, Office of the President, Vice President, Aja as an Executive Staff Assistant, could I beshigeshche. Ado shinkbi tobi hahotzo ade indo ade nasha. When it ako do tera hot ando ne jenshne, Davis Filfred shedishne, kilichin shnido tlashi bashishim dandashiche turichin dashinelle, ado shi able inash, could ado zonogoshin head ado afti top behind indigi banyel tigi benashin himatoisnan, could edole. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Filford. Michelle Brown Yazzie.
Yat bene yaha touchy ninchla anaslana bashichin synergy dashache anaslana dashamela not niljin danasha. I am the Assistant Attorney General for the Water Rights Unit at the Department of Justice. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jason Jones.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Jason John here. Tapa is the auto last year. Ki ani dasnala auto ashini dasiche. I am the Director of the Navajo Department of Water Resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. John. Senator Carlisle Begay.
Good morning, Chairman, honorable members of the Resources and Development Committee. Pleasure to be on here this morning. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Anybody from Washington office on the call?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
My name is Mike Bilecki. I'm assist with State Affairs in Arizona. I thought I might have a point of information or two as we go along.
Thank you, Mr. Bilecki. Appreciate you getting on the call with us today.
Mr. Chairman, this is Michael Lewis from the Washington office as well.
Michael Lewis. Thank you, Mr. Lewis, for getting on the call from Washington. Appreciate that. Honorable Freeland. Press *6. Honorable Freeland. Honorable Freeland. Okay. Any of our colleagues on the call? None?
I'm on, Chairman. Delegate Freeland.
Okay. Go ahead.
Good morning, Chairman. Mark Freeland is here. Doesn't get taught on the historic Kiani, Sanjay Kinder, Cheraton, Appalachian, other represent chapters. Crown Point, Nahajishkis, Te, I, Vicente, White Rock, Lake Valley, Herfano, and Nayas. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah. Honorable members of the Resources and Development Committee, we're on number 2 of our agenda now. The purpose of our meeting is we had a meeting on September 23, and we had a discussion on the shortfalls of the Navajo Gallup water supply project. And this project is supposed to be completed by 2024. And we had requested a follow-up meeting, also to come up with a strategic plan. And with that plan, we will schedule a meeting with congressional leaders to seek funding to complete this Navajo Gallup water supply project. So the purpose of our meeting this morning, Shananta, the Resources and Development Committee has requested to meet with all entities and stakeholders of the Navajo Gallup water supply project. And the funding shortfall the Navajo Nation faces, what actions does all entities and stakeholders need to take? What direction does RDC advise? What are the immediate actions that need to be taken? The San Juan River, San Juan chapter area here, there's a project for water to be extended out to Gallup as well as towards the west there, towards Window Rock area. Akotirigi Twitsigi a base about on Lenigation in Yakoro, Ara deal neat, Nabikia deal, Titon hat ashed a deal neat, and that Kendanal Gagode Kato are not Ani. It has a place at the Chidoge Jehovan has Arge. The hot a base of the any kid last the tweets in the base about whatever the Niston Hickout, base of Sabachad or Nis, as toward or Nis Paniga, but it on Nis. So, with that, Shananta, our first presentation will be Ms. Michelle Brown Yazzie, as well as Madam Chair, Water Rights Commission, Ms. Ashley. So, Ms. Yazzie? You have the
Yes,
floor.
Mr. Chair, I am here. Good morning. And thank you again for this opportunity. We did have our meeting on the 23rd, and then on the 29th, I did share a PowerPoint presentation regarding this matter, and also, the steps that have been taken thus far to work with our project partners, and also updating reclamation and interior on what our efforts have been so far. And so I did have that opportunity last week to go over that. I'm not sure how much more detail you would like on the actual proposed amendments that did take several months to put together to reach consensus with the project partners. We also received technical assistance from reclamation as well as from interior, and in response to the proposed amendments that were prepared. I also see on this call, I had to step away during introduction, so I'm not sure if he was introduced, but I see that Mr. Pat Page from Reclamation, who oversees this project, is on the call as well. And I was hoping if he didn't have an opportunity to introduce himself, if we could have him do that at this time, Mr. Chair, would that be okay?
Yes, Mr. Page, could you introduce yourself, sir?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Nez. Good morning, and good morning to members of the RDC and others on the call. My name is Pat Page. I'm a little rusty here, but I've been a Pat Page in English nish Irish Bashachin, Irish Bashache, English Nationale, Durango, Colorado, Dina Shah. I am the manager of the Bureau of Reclamation's Four Corners Construction Office. The office oversees the development of the Navajo Gallup Water Supply Project, and have been working with Michelle and Jason and others to address these issues that she'll be discussing today. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Mr. Page. Ms. Brown-Yazzie?
I'm sharing the map. Mr. Chair, I know that you were talking about where the area impacted, where the pipeline is. So I thought I would pull the map up, as part of this discussion. And I wasn't planning on going through the presentation that I went through last week again, unless the committee would like me to do that. I think that today's work session, you wanted to be more focused on where we go from here in regards to working with our congressional delegation. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I think that if that's the direction of today's meeting, since we've already had these other presentations, that we do definitely need to include the Washington office and have them update the committee on what has been done so far, because there has been briefings for congressional staff on this matter. And just so that you're aware, the DOJ, the Water Rights Unit, we did bring on board Michael Connor and his firm to work as consultants on this matter, as well as assist us in our lobbying efforts. And the Washington office has been engaged throughout this process, especially with where we're at now. So I know that there have been meetings with staff and updating, because there is quite an interest from our delegation, especially the New Mexico senators and representatives on this project, because it impacts, New Mexico just as much as it impacts the Navajo Nation. And I also want to let you know that the city of Gallup as well hired a lobbyist to assist with this effort on behalf of the city of Gallup to move forward the proposed amendments that the project partners have been working on for the past several months. So if you would not mind, Mr. Chair, if you want to clarify the direction for today's meeting for us so that we can be on the right, move in the right direction. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown-Yazzie. If you would just provide us a summation of this proposed amendment to the Navajo Gallup Water Supply Project, we would appreciate it, just briefly.
Okay. While I am preparing to do that, could I ask Michael Lewis to give us an update on the efforts from the Washington office so far, and then I will go through the amendments as well. I can even share the draft amendments as well. But if you would allow Michael to let us know like what meetings and briefings have been held so far, I think that would be helpful to this discussion as well.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brown-Yazzie, for that recommendation. Mr. Lewis, could you provide that information to leadership? Thank you.
Yes, so we have had 2 briefings with congressional staff over the last, I guess the first briefing was probably 3 weeks ago, and the second briefing was, it might have been early last week or the week before. And in those briefings, we went over what the changes to what the proposed amendments are. We went over the need for the proposed amendments and mostly the cost overruns and whatnot. The participants in the briefings included representatives from every office in New Mexico, and we were also able to get a representative from O'Halloran's office and Senator Kelly's office in Arizona to attend on the second briefing as well, since they are part of our delegation and are generally responsive. And we do have some of the laterals will ultimately bring water to some of the Arizona chapters. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So what was the discussion, Mr. Lewis?
I mean, mostly it was an informational discussion. The staffers from all the offices were generally favorable towards moving forward with the amendments. They recognized that it is something that needs to be done. They just wanted to make sure that that we had final agreement between the Navajo Nation, the Guerrilla Apache tribe, and the city of Gallup. And I believe that we are mostly there. There was one small change that the city of Gallup wanted that came in yesterday, but we, as soon as we have final language that's ready, that we're ready to move forward with, we will be able to move forward with getting the legislation introduced. There has been some talk about getting it into the reconciliation package, but just given the current situation in Congress, we don't think that will actually be possible, because we don't think Sinema's office would be willing to go with it. So thank you again, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Ms. Michelle Brown-Yazzie.
Mr. Chair, thank you, and thank you for giving me that little bit of time to bring this presentation back up again. As I presented last week and we discussed on the 23rd, the amendments that were recognized as being necessary, and this is it includes the project partners, again, who are City of Gallup, the State of New Mexico, Hickory Apache Nation, and also with the information provided to us by Reclamation. There is a need, because there is the cost overrun, to increase the authorization by $447 million. Now that is the recommendation from the Navajo Nation. Reclamation's number was a little bit different, and I'm glad that Mr. Page is on. If there's any questions regarding that, he may be able to provide some answers and explain why there's a difference. But so we're asking for the authorization to be increased to 1.795 billion. The difference between Reclamation's number and the Navajo Nation's number is that the Navajo Nation is including a contingency amount to ensure that we do not have to go back and request additional funding. We want to make sure that this is going to be enough to complete the project, and hopefully we won't have any more delays in having the project completed. And so part of the amendments is also to extend the deadline for the construction completion. It was originally planned to be completed in 2024. And now it is believed that we are going to need an additional 5 years to complete the project. So it'll allow additional time for the completion. Okay. It's not allowing me to move. Oh, there we go. Included in the proposed amendments are waivers for yes?
I was going to say, when you stated the deadline for the construction from 2024 to 2029?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Did you want more explanation on that, Mr. Chair? Again, we do have Pat Page on the line, and I'd say let's use this opportunity to utilize him for information. We can have him address that.
Okay. Let me have Mr. Page, if you would explain some of these, we would appreciate that. Like the shortfall from 447 to 1.795 billion, as well as extending the deadline from 2024 to 2029. Mr. Page?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Nez and members of the RDC committee. So the first part here, the funding gap, the difference in the amount that Reclamation calculated and the amount that the Navajo Nation is proposing. As Michelle mentioned, the part of that is due to an additional amount of money, a contingency to ensure that there is a sufficient amount of money in the ceiling so that we don't have to come back and do this again. And then it will cover any unforeseen increases that may be out there. But in addition to that, there are some additional scope that the Navajo Nation has added, like is proposing, like connections, renewable energy component, and some amount of funding for hydropower generation. And so that moves the number, the ceiling or the funding gap from 330 million up to the 447 million. And so that's the difference in the two numbers. As far as the need to extend the deadline for the construction completion, we, as I believe, I think I reported to this RDC a couple of years ago that we were approached by Public Service Company of New Mexico back in late 2018 to see if we would be interested in incorporating the San Juan Generating Station river diversion, and water storage facilities into the project. And so we undertook a investigation of that to see if that would be feasible. But before we did first what we called a fatal flaw analysis, just to see if there was anything that jumped out at us that would prevent us from wanting to do further analysis to determine the feasibility of incorporating those facilities. The fatal flaw analysis didn't turn up any red flags for us. So we determined that it would be in the best interest of the project to proceed with a more thorough analysis of incorporating those facilities. But before we did that, we sought the consent of both Navajo Nation and the state of New Mexico, because we knew that we would have to pause the design, the ongoing design work of some of the those upper reaches, including the intake structure and the water treatment plant, while we studied the feasibility of incorporating those facilities. And that would cause a delay or a need to extend the completion deadline. The current legislation allows the completion deadline to be extended by agreement among the settling parties, and that is the Navajo Nation, the state of New Mexico, and the Department of the Interior. And so we reached out for consent from both the Navajo Nation and the state of New Mexico, asking if they would be okay with us undergoing this additional analysis that would result in the need to extend, and they both the Navajo Nation and New Mexico gave us that consent. Now we have completed that further analysis, more detailed analysis. It is confirmed that indeed the incorporation of the San Juan Generating Station facilities, diversion and storage facilities would be in the best interest of the project, not only from a capital cost savings, but also, as noted here, savings and a reduction in the complexity of the O&M, annual operation and maintenance expenditures, costs, and so we are proceeding with incorporating those facilities. The reason for the need for the extension of the deadline is to allow for reclamation to complete our necessary environmental compliance for the acquisition of those facilities, complete and negotiate the contracts to acquire the facilities and the land, complete any upgrades and enhancements necessary on those facilities, and then complete the design and construction to tie those facilities into the project. We are anticipating that initial water deliveries would begin in 2028, but we would have a 1 year of testing and commissioning, which makes us need to extend the completion deadline to 2029. Stand for any questions that you may have. Thank you, Chairman Nez.
Thank you very much, Mr. Page. What we would like to do is, may everybody please put your phones on mute. Please put your phones on mute. Thank you. Mr. Page, what we would like to do while you're on the phone with us, how much time do you have to attend our meeting, sir?
Chairman, as I've got, I'll make myself available for as long as you need me.
Okay, thank you. We have a new advisor, Mr. Rodney Tahi. What we would like to do sometime soon is perhaps schedule a tour of the water project starting from my area here at San Juan River. and just perhaps go on out towards Gallup area and just look at the project sometimes, Mr. Page?
We would be happy to do that, Chairman, as for you and the rest of the RDC.
Okay, thank you. We'll just have you stay on the phone with us. So after Ms. Brown-Yazzie does her presentation, we'll open the floor for discussion. Ms. Yazzie?
Okay, Mr. Chair, I will go ahead and continue on to go over the different or the proposed amendments. So as was mentioned, one of the asks in these proposed amendments is operations and maintenance waivers. Currently, there is in the legislation now, there is an O&M waiver for the Navajo Nation for up to 10 years. However, it is not mandatory, it is discretionary. And so in these proposed amendments, we're asking that the O&M waiver be mandatory and extended from 10 to 15 years. The current law does not have such O&M waivers for Hickory Apache Nation or for the city of Gallup. And the proposed amendments do include mandatory 10-year waivers for Hickory and for Gallup. And I would like to note that this was a matter of much discussion between the parties, with there initially being some resistance from some of the project partners, including the Navajo Nation, because the result of this project is the Navajo Nation's water settlement. However, in this time where there's a need to address infrastructure and I guess you could say the way that Congress is, the policy initiatives from the Biden administration, as well as our congressional delegation, is that there is a serious need across the country to address the infrastructure needs. And so we did include the waivers because it definitely would assist the project partners in providing hopefully low-cost services to the customer base, and to ensure, that our communities do receive at a reasonable cost, low cost, water that's needed. So, and a majority of the customer base, of course, are Navajo Nation tribal members. So we did include this into the proposed amendments. It's possible that if any of members of Congress see an issue with it, that we may have to go back, or they may decide, to remove the waivers for perhaps Hickory or for the city of Gallup. Again, we already have a waiver in the current law, except it is discretionary and only for 10 years. So are there any questions? And I don't know if Pat, maybe you want to add on to what I just stated regarding the O&M, or any of our other team that's been working on this.
Thank you, Ms. Brown-Yazzie. Mr. Page, would you like to add anything to the O&M?
Chairman, I think Ms. Yazzie explained that perfectly. I don't have anything else to add.
Okay, thank you. Honorable members of RDC, do you have any questions or comments? Ms. Yako, you're more than welcome to ask questions as well. None. Let me go to Senator Gay. Honorable Freeland. Honorable Freeland, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. Definitely appreciate the time as well. Good morning, Otto. Thank you, Michelle, and the DOJ team, as well as our colleagues from Water Resources and Water Management Branch, and as well as our partners from BOR. Thank you. I guess I don't know if we're going to get to this discussion about shortfall or financial outlooks, but if that's going to be a topic for discussion for us at some point, how's that looking? How will we address that, and how will we move forward with any sort of addressing of shortfalls, and if Congress is going to be looking at reallocating some funds? Do we need to really, as delegates, we can lobby hard to Congress and ask for their help and put on our lobbying hat. But I guess at some point, if we are feeling we're not going to have enough funding for completion of the project, then that's when we need to really get prepared and start familiarizing ourselves even more. Because if we go to Washington, we go to Senate Indian Affairs Committee, or we go to Senate Natural Resources, or anyone that will be key in this whole discussion. Even the White House, if we have to go to the White House and ask for more funds, we need to be acclimated or very much in tune with where things began, where they are, and where they're going. So I definitely appreciate this PowerPoint as well, but I don't know if we can get any discussion as far as that issue with the shortfall and addressing that. So Eddie, Chairman, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Brown-Yazzie?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Delegate Freeland. This actually is the avenue in which we are trying to address the shortfall. So the shortfall, as was stated, is between 330 million to 447 million. That's the amount that we need in addition to what was already authorized by Congress to finish this project. And we prepared these proposed amendments with the project partners. Reclamation is very much involved and aware of this effort, and as well as Interior. And I want to add also our congressional delegation, because we have been having briefings with the staff, and we do know that Senators Lujan and Heinrich, as well as our representatives, have an interest and have been inquiring as to where things are at in regards to this project. So they've been very supportive from what I'm aware of from discussions the Washington office has been having with staff. And also, our consultant lobbyist, Mike Connor, who we brought in because he's been involved in this project since the very beginning when he was staff for Bingaman, and then also, as the Assistant Secretary for Interior. So we've had him involved, and he's been just the right person to be working on behalf of the Navajo Nation. He's the Navajo Nation's lobbyist / consultant. And so I think that we are making very good progress. And as Michael just updated us on, there's hopes, there's probability, there's possibility that maybe this amount of funding that's needed could be included in the reconciliation bill, which is before Congress as we speak. So, if everything comes out the way we would want it, hopefully we would have this funding sooner than later. If it doesn't get addressed, in the reconciliation bill, then yes, we're going to have to continue to keep working on it and have those meetings with our delegation, who I believe are on board. So we might have to go beyond just the Navajo Nation's delegation. But I'm going to defer to the Washington office because that's their niche, their expertise to advise us. And of course, we can utilize our lobbyist consultants as well to continue to advise us if this does not make it to the reconciliation bill and it doesn't get funded right away. But this is what I believe, that the approach that the nation does need to continue taking to address that shortfall. So I hope that answers your question, Delegate Freeland.
Thank you. Honorable Freeland, do you have a follow-up?
Chairman, thank you. Just more of a comment, and I appreciate that kind of background by Ms. Brown-Yazzie, and I think just as an example how this all came about historically, and I really, just thinking about how bipartisanship worked at that time at the DC level. Senator Bingaman and Senator Domenici worked together to make this happen, a Republican and a Democrat. And I wish things were like that these days. We're so divided, unfortunately, as a country, as parties or whatever. Partisanship is what Washington runs on right now. And I wish there was more bipartisanship. There are, small traces of it, but for the benefit of the Navajo Nation, especially, of course, the city of Gallup is also benefiting, but these water rights were established for a purpose and a reason. These water rights were given to the Navajo Nation for a purpose and a reason. And we have a lot to be thankful for. We have to really be thankful for the late Domenici and Senator Bingaman right now, of the work that they did together to make this a reality for us. So just kind of a comment and thinking about historically, Chairman and colleagues, those were the good old days, when that used to happen. And, I was young, of course, but understood how politics was working in Washington. But, I appreciate the background and I appreciate the discussion. And if we ever have to come to that point where we need to go back to Washington and really start advocating harder, let us know. We can do that. We can have those discussions. So definitely appreciate the work that you all are doing at DOJ and, Ms. Yellow Eagle, the past water commission, the current water commissioners, everyone that's been involved historically with this effort. So I'm really enthused about the BBN9, that reach and reaching as far as Crown Point, but all the communities and chapters along the way. Standing Rock is prepared. They have a north and south projects going. 66 homes are waiting right now at Standing Rock. And it's historically, just thinking about how much of a life enhancement this is going to bring to our people and how much of a factor this is going to be for our people, for them to have the ability to turn on a faucet or use a commode within their home. It's forever a life-changing, situation. So I just want to say thank you to all of those who have been involved in the past, who are currently involved now, the partnerships we have, and the direction this project is going. So, Chairman, thank you very much. I don't want to take up too much time.
Thank you, Honorable Freeland, for your comments, and Ms. Brown-Yazzie for your response. You did ask Washington office to also add to it. Mr. Lewis?
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so, just so in terms of our strategy going forward, we definitely do have to reach out beyond our congressional delegation. We're going to be reaching out to the members of the Energy Committee as they will be weighing in on this. And there is broad support for funding the Indian water project or water rights settlements in the infrastructure package that is pending before the House right now. There was a large amount of money that was set aside for this. We do not, for water settlements in general. We don't know that the amendments would be eligible for that money. That's a question that's still pending with Congress. But in terms of the likelihood of it passing, there is lots of support for Indian water settlements, and we would reach out to the people who have supported other settlements across the country as someone that can help us. The likelihood of the infrastructure package passing as it currently stands, we are still hopeful that that will pass, though it is currently being held up by the reconciliation process. And yeah, anyway, we're working on it. We are not limiting it to our delegation, but as of right now, we have only briefed our delegation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis, for that. We also have on the call with us this morning, Honorable Chairman Otto Shaw. Could you introduce yourself, sir? Press *6. We'll come back to him. Honorable Freeland, you have the floor.
Chairman, thank you. I appreciate that comment by Mr. Lewis. If we as delegates need to advocate to the DC level, at the DC level, at Capitol Hill too, we don't mind doing that, especially if it's going to impact our communities. My area is going to be impacted by BBN 9, which is a reach off of the Navajo Gallup water. But we also have the right now the Cutter lateral side, which is also on, and Herfino and Nyeezy are getting that water right now, which is good. That's also that on that side. But if at any time you need us to come to DC and advocate for this, especially if we have to go before the energy committee, or if you want us to come up and do that, we don't mind doing that. Just let us know, because this is so important. I mean, this is so important. We can't stress the importance of this right now, especially it's like we're nearing the end of the finish line. We can see that light at the end of the tunnel. And especially when you see the construction up near Chairman's area, especially them laying the pipe, that 3-foot pipe. And, we're so close. And when those valves do turn on, the amount of water that will be flowing to our people is going to be tremendous. So if at any time you all need help up there, please let us know. We can arrange that as leadership. Well, Adia, thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Honorable Freeland. Honorable Chairman So, are you on the call with us now? Press *6. Honorable Otto So. I think he's having issues with his mute button there. Time to get a new phone for all of us. Otto So? None? Let me go to our Senator Carlisle Begay. Senator, could you brief us on this restrictions of the water delivery through the Navajo Gallup water supply to the Navajo communities in Arizona, sir?
Thank you, Chairman, and Chairman and members of the RDC committee. What I'll also just briefly touch upon some of the comments made, and I think Chairman Freeland had made some good points about the partisan nature of Congress at the moment. But back to the point of the priorities of Congress at the moment, as many of you are aware, Congress passed last week a continuing resolution to fund the government through early December. And there's still a pending fight on raising the debt ceiling, but a big focus at the moment are the two separate pending but parallel priorities related to infrastructure. As many of you followed in the news in the last couple of weeks, the House of Representatives in particular has been working on a proposed $3.5 trillion infrastructure budget reconciliation package. But it's important to distinguish that ongoing negotiation separate from the parallel but pending $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill that the U.S. Senate passed already, and that's what was referenced in terms of the water adjudication or the water settlement dollars that were included in that Senate package passed. And there's a lot of discretion specifically for the Senate Committee on Indian Affairs on how they will spend or have an ability to spend an equivalent to about $11 billion in investment for tribal communities. But there was specifically $2.5 billion to address approved Indian water rights settlements. And so I mentioned that just as a precursor to the sphere of influence. If that $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill does pass, there'll be a lot of influence by Indian Affairs on the discretion of how those dollars are allocated or how they're spent. And unfortunately, as many of you are aware, we did lose an advocate or voice on the Indian Affairs Committee in the Senate this Congress. Mark Kelly lost, or the previous senator held a position on the Indian Affairs from Arizona. So it's the first time in Arizona we have not had a membership in that committee. And so we would really have to rely on Senator Ben Ray Lujan to advocate for this from the Indian Affairs perspective. Back to the Energy and Natural Resources Committee in the Senate and the spheres of influence. As mentioned, the key spheres of influence on that committee are Senator Heinrich, who is a more senior member of that committee, along with Senator Mark Kelly, who's the newest member of that committee. But still very important. He's got great staff that understand Navajo issues specifically. I have a history understanding Indian water rights settlements, specifically Nick Matea, who was previously with Senator McCain. So I would maybe suggest to the committee that there would be an advocate or someone who understands these issues very well. So if the committee were to decide on moving forward on an advocacy and the spheres of influence, those two committees would be equally as important but separate in terms of the ongoing negotiations, both in the ongoing infrastructure reconciliation package negotiations, the $3.5 million versus the $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill that already passed the Senate. But again, I want to clarify that those two separate parallel priorities by Congress are independent in a way that they're politically related, in that they're both being leveraged against one another, and whether or not Congress has enough votes to pass a $3.5 trillion infrastructure package is still not known, especially because this goes to my next point. The two biggest influences in this debate at the moment are Senator Manchin from West Virginia and our own Arizona Senator Kyrsten Sinema. Both of them have in the last week indicated that they want the final package to come well under the $3.5 trillion price tag, with Senator Manchin in particular suggesting in the last week, I think it was Thursday or Friday, that his top line number that he would support is about $1.5 trillion, so significantly less than the initially proposed $3.5 trillion budget. And this is far from where members in the House Progressive Caucus, who had initially pressed for a closer to a $6 trillion package, but the biggest spheres of influence in that debate are again Senator Manchin and Senator Sinema. So if the committee were to look at the outlook of who would be important in discussing Navajo Gallup water supply project, those two senators in the Senate would be particularly important. And then, Senator Sinema in particular, obviously, because she's our Arizona senator. So I think that, when you look at those spheres of influence, those will be particularly important. But we also have to take into account that with efforts being made by various committees and markup, there are issues that are also not particularly supported by the council, in particular RDC. As you're aware, the committee chairman, Nez and Delegate Freeland and Speaker sent a letter 2 weeks ago to congressional leaders indicating some of the opposition to language related to Chaco Canyon. So there'd be a need to clarify sort of the positions that Navajo obviously finds this Navajo Gallup water supply project important, but yet there are still concerns related to other issues in the markup on the House side that are not necessarily supported by the council in particular. But so if you look forward, there's still uncertainty in terms of timeline and the political framework and the partisan framework that no doubt is going to be a tough task to get the votes needed to get either the infrastructure package, the $1 trillion, or the $3.5 trillion as proposed currently through Congress. It's a very tough hill to climb because Republicans generally are using the markups in the House to voice their opposition to the package as a whole, and Speaker Pelosi in the House cannot lose no more than 3 Democratic votes for the plan. And then Speaker Pelosi has already delayed votes on the package. And last week there was a deadline to vote on the $1 trillion Senate passed infrastructure bill that came and gone. So she did that because she's got a tough job of keeping the centrist and the liberals on board with both economic proposals. And so there's a lot of movement, but again, I think that the biggest spheres of influence for the nation are Senator Manchin, Senator Sinema from Arizona, Mark Kelly from Arizona, Senator Ben Ray Lujan, and Senator Heinrich, and then obviously Congressman O'Halloran. So I'm not aware of the conversations that the Washington office or the lobbyists that DOJ has hired that they've had already. So I think committee members, you probably benefit from understanding those conversations as well. So Chairman, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Senator Begay, for providing a report to RDC on this project. So and also on the TL 111-11. Any other questions, comments? None. Let me go back to Ms. Ashley. Would you like to add anything, Ms. Ashley?
Thank you, Chair. At this point, no, I've been in the discussions and working with the team as far as what Ms. Michelle Brown-Yazzie has presented. So I appreciate you asking for comments. I think the only one, the big, I guess the comment that Chair or Delegate Mark Freeland had brought up as far as, figuring out the strategy and addressing that point. I think that that's why we're all here. But as far as, having prepared the actual language and working through that document, we've all been part of that. And I really appreciate the discussion that Senator Begay has brought up, and also the Washington office. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ashley. Our discussion this morning, we're focused on coming up with a strategy that we will present to our congressional leaders once we have this strategic plan in place, we will go and travel to DC, those of us that are able to make it, and meet with leadership. And as we have on the agenda here, communication strategy for Navajo Nation Water Team. So we are a team here today, and we're discussing these concerns on the shortfall. Our Navajo people, Shananta, our Navajo people, 40%, more than 40%, do not have running water, and that is bothersome. It bothers your conscience. When you turn on the water to brush your teeth, wash your face, take a shower, it makes you think about those people that do not have water. And this project, we're asking for funding, the shortfall. There's these amendments that are presented to us, and the original authorization was $1.348 billion. There's a shortfall of $447 million to be on the safe side and to raise it to $1.795 billion. The other one is to extend the deadline for the project from 2024 to 2029. These are very paramount as to what we will be talking about to our congressional leadership. And we will probably plan this in coordination with our Senator Carlisle Begay, as well as Washington office, Mr. Lewis, as well as Ms. Lewis. And I understand, Ms. Lewis, you are on the call. Could you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, good morning, Chairman Nev. This is Nancy Lewis from the Navajo Nation Washington office. Thank you for acknowledging me, and we are happy to be on the call. Thank you, Shanat.
Thank you very much. So we will coordinate as to how we will schedule and when we can schedule to meet with our congressional delegation from New Mexico, Arizona, as well as Utah. So, let me go to Honorable Begay. Honorable Kealan Begay, press *6.
Okay. Chairman Yate, Benito, our RDC member, and everyone on the line. My recommendation is also rather than go directly to the congressional delegation, first, before doing that, I think we really need to which office the just like our division economic development, division transportation. You made the connection to the chief of staff for each of the delegation, and each of the senator and the House, they have specific staff that works on specific issues. The big leg work gets into play. Delegation of the the senator and the House just going straight to the senator, I mean, just like John Hugh, what got not so and Hail so on what nan he don't need how we gotta go back to the division director. Let's say, for example, Mr. Shabala, what it don't need. If it relates to agriculture, we go to Mr. Watchman or Water, don't you know, Mr. Jason John. Other than they go down to the local level again. So rather than doing that, I think we really need to go from the bottom on up. Go out to set up Johnson. That way, they help feed the delegation, the committee, even each of the committee that just like the advisor. I mean, they have the Democratic caucus, the Republican caucus, and then whatever they have, even like the Western caucus. So those are some key people that we really need to be dealing with, because what we want and how we want usually it really sends a strong message. At the local level, my recommendation is go directly to our governors for the Arizona, Utah, and New Mexico. From my state, no. Joe, that ego, I think. I mean, if you want to strategize, a lot of time things happens if the chair, or speaker, or the president makes the action. Of course, the meeting not somehow broadband. It seems that I'm pushing it as we go along. The next meeting that I'm pulling together is all the county supervisors. We're going back up to the somehow we're going to go back up to the council and hear from our end in getting these funding in place. So I think it's lengthy in a way, but the sooner the better. So again, I'm not saying follow this process, but all I'm saying is that the more we disseminate information, I think that the more support that we need to get, and the better understanding is being relayed to the senators. So that way, and then not just them. I mean, just like us, even one delegate, and then the other committee member may not be in tune. So that's the reason why, not our own delegation, but who as a committee or the Democrat or Republican as a whole. I mean, set up so I would say that 1 or 2 trips will be beneficial in making this effort at the DC level. Additionally, of course, we have the BIA, Department of the Interior, to be on our side as well. So, I think that would be, to some extent, it will be effective, knowing that we just disseminate all this information of what we're aiming and what we're trying to achieve. The more information they have, the more advocacy we have. I think it's be a better chance that we'll do what needs to be done. So, Chairman, so that's my input for the moment.
Thank you, Honorable Begay. Before you got on the call, we did have a discussion on how we're going to coordinate which congressional leaderships that we'll be reaching out to have meetings. So, earlier, we do have folks from the Washington office on the line with us, as well as Senator Gay and Mr. Mike Bilecki. And we do have from the Bureau of Reclamation, Mr. Pat Page, on the call with us this morning, as well as from the President's office. We have Honorable Philfred, and we have Michelle Brown-Yazzie from the Department of Justice, Mr. Jason John from Water Resources, as well as the Water Rights Commission that he's on. We have from the Water Rights Commission, Ms. Ashley, Madam Chair Ashley, and Mr. Bert Sandoval with us. So we're having a good discussion this morning. So Honorable Chairman Otto.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I tried to get unmuted earlier and had to redial in. So I'm glad that the water right discussion is going on, and with the Water Commission on board, and then the Navajo Nation. I know that you did indicate that a discussion of communication really needs to happen, and you guys spoke to that to a certain degree. But we really need to get the executive branch and the legislative branch to be really on one page, because usually when we get to Washington, the executive branch is doing their own thing, and Navajo Nation Washington office is doing their own thing. And when delegates get there, I never seen the Navajo Washington office in that state. Although I've seen the Washington office under the former director, and he really helped us when we got there. And this is something that I observed, and this water right issue is very, very important. I really hope that Washington office is listening, and it's very important to the nation, and we cannot continue to move forth with any sort of discussion of, well, President said this and wants this and that. We're all there to be unison in one voice relating to our water rights. And the Washington office be work on behalf of the Navajo people. And we really need that dialogue so that, Department of Justice and legislative branch, the delegates, everybody is all on par, so that we're all unison as we get to the halls of the congressional leaders when the lobbying efforts begin. We have a water litigation that's going on in the state of Phoenix, or the state of Arizona, LCR. And those are things that I really worry about, and everything pertaining to the water rights, and speaking to the commissioners also and other individuals on the line there. We really need to protect Navajo's interest in all of our water rights, and we have to be unison. We cannot be on the other side over there. That was just being my what I'm going to echo, and I appreciate this discussion, and appreciate to hear the water rights commissioners and Senator Begay and Ms. Bailaki and the other individuals that are on the line. I appreciate this time, and
thank you, Honorable Show, for getting on the call. All of us that are on the call today, the focus, the reason why we're having this discussion this morning is to create a team, as we are doing now. All of us are a team now. As a team, we all have a part to a duty and responsibility. We have heard from Washington office. We have heard from the Department of Justice, Water Rights Commission. We have heard from Senator Begay. Now, as leadership from RDC, we're putting together a plan. The plan that will present to congressional leaders a plan that will touch their hearts and minds and say, Navajos need water. Over 40% of Navajo Nation has no water. They'll think about this. And because of that, COVID-19 continues to be persistent on the Navajo Nation and continues to rise due to the lack of water when the rest of the United States has water. So we're all looking at this together, reaching out to each other. We need your help, Washington office, Department of Justice, commissioners. If you could travel with us to DC, we would very much appreciate that. Senator Begay, you're always there with us on behalf of the great Navajo Nation. We want you there. Speaker's office as well. This is a team. We will go as a team. We will coordinate. We will plan and say, this is our strategy. This is what our congressmen, senators need to hear, that there was a $1.348 billion existing funding authorization, and there's a shortfall of $447 million to complete this. Who are the stakeholders in all this? The state of New Mexico, Arizona, Navajo Nation, city of Gallup, as well as Hickory, as we just heard. Mm-hmm. So this can be raised to $1.795 billion. To talk to them, but extend the deadline for these projects from 2024 to 2029, as well as O&M waivers for the Navajo Nation. Make it 15 years. Make it mandatory, not just discretionary. You see, we're coming up with a plan now. We're talking, we're repeating what we need to take with us and repeat to them that Navajo Nation needs water, period. Mm-hmm. Our dear Navajo people need water. They need water. Water is life. They need to hear this. Mm-hmm. The only way we'll be a team is if we communicate properly with each other. If we're just going off on the other end, we have to remain focused on the intent of this project, which is completion for our Navajo people. Thank you. Let me go to Ms. Yako.
Chairman, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Good morning. Thank you, Hehat Nana and Chicago Chairman Nez, for giving the Speaker's office a few minutes to make some statements. I just wanted to really quickly add to the conversation. In general, the planning and the overall commitment to move forward and take this to the congressional level is very, it's very adamant, and I feel like we really need to definitely move forward. Understanding everyone's input in the conversation, I just wanted to quickly point out that currently there is a legislation request that we are currently working on from the Speaker's office in conjunction with the Water Department, Water Management Department with Mr. John. And this is in regards to specifically connections, the connections from the Navajo Gallup water line pipeline itself to different areas of New Mexico. So that would be Northern and Eastern Agency. So I just wanted to mention that, Chairman and RDC members, so that you're aware that there will be legislation coming through on that. And this is going to be requested out of the UUSB. And so of course, any other water funding allocations that we can expect or want to apply for in the future through federal funding, or even through ARPA, would be reimbursed back to the UUFB. And so we just wanted to make a clarification that the connection request for this legislation is in reference to the Navajo Gallup Waterline Project Shortfall, but it's also a separate request on its own because it's dealing specifically for connections to chapters and to other communities that were not necessarily listed. And Jason can correct me if I'm wrong, but they weren't necessarily listed on the overall shortfall in general. I just wanted to mention that. And then also that here at the Speaker's office, we fully support the initiative, and we are happy to help the Resources and Development Committee, Water Rights Commission, and everyone that's on the call that has contributed, that will contribute to this process for this initiative. So I just wanted to really emphasize that, Chairman, and to mention that we are here to support and to help in any way that we can. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ms. Yako. We certainly will coordinate and come up with their strategic plan, and I know that you're taking notes and you're always there to assist as well. So from the Speaker's office, we appreciate the work that you do. And any comments or questions?
Chairman.
Honorable Vice Chair Walker, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Chairman, and committee members, and then colleagues that are on this call, colleagues of the 24th Navajo Nation Council, although the presenters, though, and our staff and the offices also that are on this call this morning. Yeah. Chairman, if I may request through the committee and through yourself as our chair to have some of the presenters working together to establish some ideas, some logistical outline of the steps that we'll be taking from here on as we prepare for the what's to be. That itself is a strategy. It keeps the leadership focused, and we know what the next steps are and how we should prepare. Chair, just an outline of what's to be, the steps that we will be taking, the different timelines. I know we're talking about the overall shortfall and very important information. Just as important is the logistical side, what to expect, what to anticipate. That way we're also mentally prepared, and we also can assign from the committee the different representatives to take part in different activities. Although I think traveling is still somewhat concern for some of us, traveling on the plane, traveling to the other side of the country. Taking all precautionaries and being safe and things like being vaccinated and so forth. It's still a concern in our minds, and we have learned to live with a virus, a dangerous virus. I think virtual meetings, we should take full advantage of what that the opportunities that are presented in these virtual calls, because it wouldn't take much to pick up the phone and be part of some very key and critical discussion. But down here on Navajo and being on the council with the amount of work we're doing, we're
we don't, the Washington office, though, Senator Begay and others that support and help Navajo, it seems like they have a pulse of Washington, D.C. better than some of us. Opportunities that are there for leadership to voice and advocate for Navajo, just like we're doing here. This is a really good advocacy that I'm hearing. But to be focused, to be united, at the end of the day, that one common statement, focused advocacy coming from Navajo, that's what it should be. So before that, of course, we can question, we can offer different points of view, different strategies, but at the end of the day, Chair, back to you. Thank you, Honorable Vice Chair Walker. I believe that's what we will come out of today is the recommendations and the follow-up. For all those that are on the call today, if you would briefly present your logistical outline, your plan, strategy, and how to prepare, and we can compile a written plan from each entity, and we can submit these as well from your shop. Submit this to Mr. Rodney Tahi, our advisor, as well as from Speaker's Office, Ms. Melinda Arvizo Siaco. At our last meeting, Madam Chair from the Water Rights Commission, Ms. Ashley, she said that she let us know that they have been working on a strategic plan and refined their talking points, and that they would also reach out to Mr. Connor from the city of Gallup, I believe, for their input as well as cost breakdown. And perhaps we could do that as well. Everybody can do that and come up with a plan. And let me go to Ms. Michelle Brown-Yazzie at this time. And then each of these presenters can make a statement to it. Ms. Yazzie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, I just really want to thank you for having this work session today. It's good that we all get on the same page and truly understand, where we're at, the work that has been done thus far, and what we need to do to make these amendments a reality. And I do want to thank Delegate Freeland for recognizing what has been done, in regards to this project from its very beginning to how it's going to help the communities that we all serve. And I was actually the Washington office director back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I recall having those meetings with Senator Domenici, who said that during his lifetime, he wanted to make the Navajo Gallup Water Supply Project a reality, which I believe that he did. Maybe, he wasn't here to see the end product, but he definitely was very important, along with Senator Bingaman and so many other people, to make, including especially Navajo Nation leadership, to make this pipeline to bring water to our Navajo people a reality. So I'm so happy to be back and to be working now. I was at the front end and now at the tail end to ensure that this project does become a reality. I did want to say that we do have those proposed amendments and the proposed talking points for our delegation, for our congressional delegation, that I did forward already to Mr. Tahi last week, along with the PowerPoint. And what I think, if there's anything in addition that we need to do from the water rights unit, I'd be happy to provide that as well. Again, we have been working closely with the Washington office. I think that Ms. Lewis and Mr. Lewis have been working hard on this, and we do need to ensure that we're all on the same page and with one voice. I also believe that our congressional delegation, that they're already sold on this because they really want to make sure that this is a reality. New Mexico is on board. They have sent representatives to all of our meetings. We have had at least 2 to 3 meetings a week since the beginning of the summer. And I know that the Governor, Michelle Lujan Grisham, is been updated consistently, and she's on board. And so they have efforts from their end. And then also Jicarilla and the city of Gallup. And again, this kind of goes to what Delegate Kialan Begay stated about needing to be sure that the different offices are aware of this. Interior has been involved, the Indian Water Rights Office, Pam Williams has been involved. Pat Page has been involved in most, if not all, of our calls. And actually, I think he was the one who brought all of the project partners together early on, at least when I started. Those were the meetings that I sat in on. And so the federal offices that need to be aware and involved of these efforts, I think definitely are aware and involved. They cannot, they have restrictions as to how they can be involved in regards to lobbying. However, they have been great technical advisors, and that has been helpful for us to get to where we're at now. And Mark Freeland did mention Lisa Yellow Eagle, who was a part of this unit, but she's actually, she's no longer with the unit because she did get a nice job with another tribe. But I do want to point out that she actually is the one who drafted these proposed amendments, and she should be recognized for that work because she was very passionate about this work as well. And so if there's anything else that and also I should not, I need to mention that water management branch, Jason John's team, Robert Kirk and Natanya Garnanez, John Leeper, and others have been very involved and so very helpful in providing us technical assistance to get to this point that we're at now as well. So you have a great Navajo Nation, an internal team, and we basically passed the baton on to the Washington office, and I'm so glad. I mean, we have been giving updates to, we have our weekly updates, our weekly reports. I've included all of this information in those weekly reports that go into our quarterly reports. And then anytime we get that opportunity to go before RDC, even though we have a lot of issues that we talk about, I'm always, making sure that we include this as well. And the last thing I want to say is that this has been a priority. It continues to be a priority until it's completed. But another priority for my unit is the Arizona water rights settlement negotiations. And it would be so helpful, and I'd be so grateful if we could have a meeting like this to talk about that, because there has been some recent major changes that have occurred that I would like to bring to leadership's attention, and then ask for direction to move forward in regards to what's being put forth with the Arizona water rights negotiation settlement. And the fact that we are also in the middle of litigation for the LCR. So just like we did today, I'm hoping we can have another meeting to address those priority issues as well. So again, thank you so very much for this time.
Thank you, Ms. Brown-Yazzie. Appreciate your dedication to the work that you do for our people. Thank you. Let me go to Madam Chair Ashley.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Michelle, for that overview. I just wanted to reiterate that the Commission has been working in step with Water Management Branch and DOJ Water Rights Unit on this effort with regards to Lisa's red lines and the proposed amendments. Also, we've been working with BOR and those meetings with City of Gallup and other stakeholders. And I think at this point, we are at a juncture where, the direction and guidance from leadership, especially RDC, to move on more footwork as far as having those discussions directly with congressional delegation is where we're at. We've continuing to have our meetings on a weekly basis, and this is the entire team that Michelle had mentioned. We're on these calls, and I know that there are some changes, and we do have to work with the other stakeholders like City of Gallup and Hickory Apache Nation. So I know that we are working along with NTUA. They've got to be included in these discussions as well, and they have been. And so, we are at that point to where Navajo Nation Washington office has got the talking points. Now I think as far as the recommendations from Senator Kyle and others, as far as moving this delegation to have more face-to-face time and express the true need, as you indicated, Chair Des, of water for the Navajo Nation and the Navajo people is really vital and critical. So I think that that's really, we're at that point. So the team, as we have, can continue to prepare, update these, draft talking points, draft recommendations, and, and then leadership can utilize that information to present, especially the technical side. I know that's always being updated and looked at as far as looking at costs. So I think we're at that juncture, and having this communication plan as one voice to DC, to all our delegation is where we're at right now, and that's really critical. I know we had looked at working with BOR, and Pat Page could probably talk about this, but we had looked at, and Commissioner Sandoval, having a prayer, but I know with COVID on a rise, with this Delta variant still affecting the nation as a whole, that may be pushed back from this fall into spring. But that's the way our culture is, as far as looking at, when we are preparing and planning and doing this type of work, there are always prayers too that we relate back to, especially when it comes to water. So I know that was something we were really hoping to have something, like that be done in October, but just this pandemic just seems to be still, on the rise again. But I know that what this team has created from Water Management Branch, working with our stakeholders and the talking points, the nation is prepared, and now we can continue to move with the recommendations for the strategic plan. And yes, we have been getting great recommendations and leadership guidance from Mr. Michael Connor, as far as his work and his recommendations to working with DOI and others on the Hill. So I think that his recommendations too would be very appreciative with our next steps. But I know that there is still a lot of work to do. I know that you had indicated a tour, Chair Nez. We could probably work with Mr. Page on getting that looked at as far as next steps down the road. So But I just really appreciate this time, and I really appreciate us, all working together and having this discussion, because it is really needed. There's a lot of moving pieces, a lot of updates, a lot of, working with other entities to move this package forward. So I believe, we're at that point. And if we begin, and then we look to Washington office to start scheduling some more meetings or other specific trips there, the commission would be happy to attend as well and be that team. So I just want to say again, thank you, and thank you for the guidance and the recommendations. Now, like you indicated, it's just bringing all the different pieces together and having one strong voice on the Hill for the nation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ashley. I'm glad you said that. One strong voice at the Hill. That's what we're aiming for. That's what we want to hear this morning. One strong voice from the Navajo Nation. Now, let me go to Washington office, Ms. Lewis. And also, could you let us know the concern that was raised also by Honorable Vice Chair Walker? If we were to all, let's just say, I don't know how many people can go to DC, and what are I understand the restrictions of the CDC. What other restrictions are in place if we were to have meetings with congressional leadership, Ms. Lewis? And also talk about the strategic plan from your perspective. Thank you. Ms. Lewis, press *6.
Okay, I think, can you guys hear me?
Yes, go ahead, proceed.
Okay. Thank you, Chair Nez and members of RDC. Okay, first I wanted just to talk about just to expand on some general comments. Something that has been very effective, and especially given how large and given how many stakeholders are invested in this issue, what I want to suggest is probably like a weekly call, or if not, maybe even a bi-weekly call. I don't know what would be suitable for everyone, but I think like this would give us a wonderful opportunity to report to this entire group and to also define some of those moving dates that may come up. I know that right now we have disseminated all of our briefing materials just to allow staff to learn more about this issue, and we've been following up with them on a weekly basis just to figure out, well, what's the status? Do you have any questions? Because if they're having those meetings with the member of Congress, those questions may come up, and so we haven't had any member level calls. I just want everybody to know that right now it's still at the staff level because we're trying to educate them, trying to get everybody familiar with this. They did indicate that they were going to send the technical amendments to Ledge Council, and so that's probably where it is at this point in time. Again, when the baton was handed over to the Navajo Nation Washington office, we took it in stride. However, we also acknowledge the importance of this and how it is a priority for not only just RDC, but again, the Water Rights Commission, NNDOJ, the communities this water is intended for, and as well as the executive branch. And so, well, probably all of Navajo. So we don't take this charge lightly. We are taking it very seriously, and that's why it is one of one of the issues that is at the top of our list in terms of priorities for this office. So I do want to recognize the importance of this. So some of our work to date has just, again, distributing briefing materials and educating folks. Right now, during the last week, I think everybody in terms of congressional offices, they have really been focused on the current, like the CR, just trying to figure out what's going to happen with the infrastructure bill, and now and really trying to figure out what is going to happen with the deficit. And so, apart from that, we are still making sure that the right offices hear us. I really am interested in figuring out where we are with each of these individual offices, so that can be something that is presented in our next, hopefully we have another weekly meeting or a bi-weekly meeting just to discuss what everybody has been doing, because I want to make sure that we're all on the same page and that we are speaking with one voice. And so I completely agree with having either a communications plan or even a periodic meeting. With respect to the protocols, Chairman Nez, it really does vary by office. Some offices have remained closed to the public. Some offices are open to virtual meetings only, and then there's other offices who are willing to accommodate a small group. And a small group, like it would be a maximum of maybe 3 individuals inside a room. It depends on how large their space is and whether or not everybody can be 6 feet apart. And so again, right now there are no absolute restrictions. There's really not a clear, I guess, guidance that is followed by every single office, just because each office is really different. But in general, you must wear masks in the building regardless of your vaccination status. And also, currently, according to the most recent recommendation by the Sergeant of Arms, they indicated that they are suggesting that no in-person meetings should happen, but then they are allowing them. So again, it is up to each office if they are choosing to take visitors. I know that right now, Senator Kelly, he is not accepting any in-person visits. I don't know about Senator Lujan, but I think if we do sit down with our congressional delegation, just to be respectful, I suggest that we move forward with visiting with our New Mexico delegation, just because this is for the Navajo Gallup Water Supply Project. And I would be willing to hear from RDC as to when, we would have to look and see when might be a good time, but we can work with your office, Mr. Chair, and members of RDC to figure out when that might be appropriate for everyone. So again, we are willing to help. Let us know what is needed from us, and we are more than happy to report back to the committee as needed. Go ahead.
So, Ms. Lewis, what is your recommendation as far as traveling to DC? We don't want to be traveling over there and have them tell us that they cannot accommodate us. Would it be best to have a teleconference meeting with some of these congressional leaders?
Mr. Chair, yes. At this time, that would be my recommendation.
Okay. Thank you for that. Mr. Pat Page, you're up, sir.
Well, thank you, Chairman Nez. I don't really have all that much to add, but I did want to mention a couple things that I've heard in this meeting, and I just want to just give a little bit of a clarification regarding the funding gap that has been identified. I want to emphasize that that is it's a projected funding gap that we've identified. That funding gap is not currently affecting our construction capability. As Delegate Freeland pointed out, as you drive north along Highway 491 and you get south of Shiprock, you can see the pipe that's going into the ground all the way up near Little Water, the Little Water area. So our construction has not slowed down. We are in the next month or two, we'll be awarding our next big construction contract, which is the what we call the Code Talker lateral, which will be a pipeline from 491 over to the New Mexico-Arizona border near Window Rock. And then there'll be 2 more pumping plants that will be, contract will be awarded later in fiscal year 2022. So next year. So construction is continuing. Construction has not been delayed at all throughout the pandemic. In fact, as Delegate Freeland has mentioned, we began delivering water through the Cutter lateral last October 2020. So it's almost been 1 year. Currently, there are 8 Navajo communities being served by the Cutter lateral, and an estimate from NTUA that we received from NTUA was approximately 1,550 homes are receiving treated project water from the Cutter lateral. So, the project is not delayed. We're delivering project water. We do need to extend the completion deadline to allow us to incorporate these facilities associated with the San Juan Generating Station, as I mentioned earlier, into the project. But that work is going on, and we're not slowing down. We anticipate that through the various mechanisms that are out there with the various bills, the appropriation bill included, that we will receive adequate funding to continue and to complete this project, and we're going forth with that assumption. So with that, I just want to say thank you for allowing me to speak to you all today, and we will be scheduling the tour for this committee so you can see the good work that's being done out there to bring water to the Navajo people. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Page. So could you also provide perhaps a written logistical outline for our strategy that you would like to recommend as well? And please send to Speaker's office, also to Mr. Tahi, our advisor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We can provide, again, as Ms. Yazzie Brown Yazzie mentioned, we have some restrictions as far as the type of assistance we can provide, but we can we have and will continue to provide technical assistance. We just have to be careful that it doesn't appear that we're lobbying Congress. So we'll continue to work with the team to the extent that we can, and I will need to kind of check with my folks to see what kind of logistical assistance we can provide in a written format, but I will do that.
Perhaps what we would like from you, from your shop there, the Bureau of Reclamation, is an updated report on the progress of the Navajo Gallup water supply project as well. So we'll just ask for that, Mr. Page.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we can definitely provide that. And I just recently, we just published our latest quarterly newsletter which just happens to contain a construction update for the entire project. So I can also make sure and get that to the committee. I'll work with your advisor on that.
Thank you, Mr. Page. Senator Begay.
Thank you, Chairman, and good members of the RDC committee. I would also concur with Ms. Santee Lewis that it's a case-by-case basis that congressional offices will are open to in-person meetings. And then the only thing that I would add is that on the administration side for the agencies and departments of the administration, the Office of Personnel Management still has a policy in place at the moment for virtual meetings only. So meetings with the executive branch, Interior, BOR may also be limited. So I just want to preface that and any anticipation for a DC visit, not to withstand that there are meetings happening in person. I think that if the committee were to consider a DC trip, it would likely be best in the next month. So the conversations would need to expedite somewhat quickly in terms of the uncertainty of the path of the current negotiations regarding the infrastructure package, reconciliation package, whether or not there'll be movement here in the next month. But I think the two targeted weeks I would just throw out there would be the last week of October or the first week of November would be 2 weeks to consider. Not certain, Mr. Tahi, on the scheduling for the committee, but those would be two potential weeks as both the Senate and the House of Congress are both in session. So you would be able to take advantage of Congress being in session as a whole those 2 weeks. And then, of course, later in November and December, there's a lot of recess in those 2 months. So I would just preface that as you begin to look at the schedules here in the next few months. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Begay, for your input there. I believe we will take that into consideration, knowing that they are encouraging virtual meetings, as also encouraged by Ms. Lewis, and perhaps our meetings will just be scheduled through teleconference once we decide how we're going to approach this. So thank you again. Let me go to the President's office, Mr. Filford.
Yes, Chair. Yes, Chair, I'm here. This is Filford. I am taking notes for Office of the President, Vice President, and my notes usually goes in as soon as the committee adjourns. So I relay all my notes to the President, VP, the Chief of Staff, the Deputy Chief, and all those that review it. So I'm pretty sure they'll be in touch with the Speaker's office as well as RDC. So I'm taking good notes, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Filford, for being on the call with us today. And thank you all for being on this call. Honorable members of RDC, do you have any other comments or questions? For any of these presenters today? If not, we can go to number 4 on the agenda. Questions, recommendations, follow-ups. The follow-up is recommendations were made from the Department of Justice, Ms. Brown-Yazzie, from her PowerPoint presentation, she presented the recommendations were the existing authorization of 1.348 billion had a shortfall of 447 million, and that will be raised to 1.795 billion, and also extend the deadline for the project from 2024 to 2029. These are the amendments, as well as operation and maintenance waivers, instead of having it be discretionary, and make it mandatory from 10 years to 15 years for Navajo Nation. And I believe that as we're discussing, we just need to have one strong voice from the Navajo Nation to request this amount of money and for the amendments. And we will all continue to work together as a team to remain focused and get this funding shortfall accomplished. We do have Senator Ben Ray Lujan, who is very supportive of this, and I believe some of our senators and congressmen are as well from all three states. So, and it doesn't sound like we're going to be able to travel to DC, but perhaps have scheduled teleconference meetings with our leadership from DC. So, and these will be our recommendations and follow-up. Is there, and all these, as we compile these information from the Water Rights Commission, Department of Justice Water Rights Unit, Washington office, Senator Begay, and the President's office, stakeholders as well, perhaps we'll get some support from the city of Gallup as well to send in their written logistical outline for strategizing a plan as to how we will continue to go forward with this. So we would appreciate that and send it to our advisor, Mr. Rodney Tahi, as well as Speaker's Office, Ms. Siako. Are there any other comments or questions from anybody? None?
Mr. Chair, this is Mariana Khan.
Ms. Khan, I'm glad that you're on the call. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of the Resources and Development Committee and all the people who are helping on this particular issue. Mr. Chair and members of the Resources and Development Committee, just something to think about if there is legislation that is to be requested. I don't know if timelines are of consideration. If their timelines are of consideration, maybe some planning should be done about when is the time to make sure that the legislation leaves the office, our Office of Legislative Counsel, and gets posted. Just something to add to the planning. I don't want to, if there is legislation to be introduced into the Navajo Nation's legislative process, it would be good to plan ahead and know when the goal of getting that posted is. Mr. Chair, that's just in terms of planning. Thank you very much. I will go on mute now.
Thank you very much, Ms. Khan, for that. Ms. Siako, has our speaker said anything about legislation? Ms. Siako, press *6. Ms. Siako? Mr. Tahi, is Ms. Siako still on the call?
Chair, Ms. Siako is on the call. I text her to let her know that she's being asked for.
Okay. Ms. Siako, please press *6 to unmute. In the meantime, honorable members of RDC, do you have any other comments or questions?
Mr. Chair, this is Daniel.
Honorable Daniels, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and also RDC members, my colleagues. So, yeah, thank you very much. And it's almost noon here in Monument Valley. I think for the Navajo Nation is almost noon. Danger that is kiddo, but I really appreciate this meeting here, the leadership meeting work session on the Gallup water supply, the Navajo Gallup water supply. Ajay, please say out of what has been discussed this morning, I support that 100%. Representing Western Agency on RDC, I represent all the initiatives in regards to infrastructures for our Navajo people, the needs for our Navajo people, water, electricity, out of the broadband, so I see baby kids as the Kododam, Adonana Kodo, Miscon Kodea, legislation. I think it would be best Kodona Reda Session and Amashinigi from the Navajo Nation Council, Kodona Reda, maybe they'll draft up a legislation supporting this the request to the federal government Washington so I think it would be best that will reinforce our request so I don't know when you're at sea level Ecuador, you gotta talk one voice, sing one tune. They'll get out of so you had the chairman so so we all need to stick together on this shortfall for Navajo Gallup water supply. That's all we really need to stick together. So today is a good meeting. I'm sure this is not going to be the only meeting on this particular project. We're going to have meetings from here on out. So that Ecuador. So but on the legislation. Mr. Chair, thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Daniels, for that. I'm glad that you are talking about supporting all this, and we all do need to support this initiative. So, Ms. Yako? Ms. Yako, press *6.
Hello, Chairman, can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you, Chairman Nez and members of RDC. Once again, this is Melinda from the Speaker's Office. I was just consulting with Speaker Damon regarding the conversation, and then also if there needs to be any other follow-up in terms of legislation. And so the purpose of the work session from the Speaker's Office is to compile all of the information that was presented by all of the entities, DOJ, Office of Legislative Counsel, our federal lobbyists and consultant, Senator Carlisle, and working with Resources and Development Committee. The overall emphasis is to compile the information, and it would then be leadership's decision in terms of RDC to see which direction it is that you would like to go, and that we would support from our office in terms of moving in that direction. And so if that would be working directly with DOJ on that, or Office of Legislative Counsel, and or compiling and working with RDC Advisor and the Speaker's Office. So it's primarily up to the Resources and Development Committee. However, if there is a recommendation from Office of Legislative Counsel for legislation, then we definitely would also be available and ready to help in any way that we can. And so those are the comments that I have for now on behalf of Speaker's Office, Chairman Nez, and RDC members and everyone on the call. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Siako. The question was raised. If there is a legislation request, Ms. Khan would like to know as soon as possible. Therefore, if there's any timeline consideration and for this legislation to be posted in reference to this project, and that was a question. I didn't know if our Speaker Damon was if he is requesting a legislation. So is he requesting a legislation?
Chairman?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. This is Melinda again. No, at the moment, Speaker Damon is not requesting a legislation. The only other component to the Navajo Gallup waterline project, as we mentioned earlier on the call, was only in regards to the 60, let me see what the exact number is, just a little over $68 million connection request that I had mentioned that was requested through the Office of Legislative Counsel by sponsor Delegate Crotty, but that's specifically for connecting to the overall pipeline. So those are the ones that are going to be coming out to the chapters, and that's specifically within New Mexico. And it would be the northern chapters into Tuahajale, and so there's numerous other connection areas outlined within the legislation. And again, Jason, if you're on the call, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the only other legislation that's currently being requested, and that's going to be through the UUFB, so that we would also be requesting that to be reallocated back to the UUFB once we're able to do so. But that's the only other legislation currently right now, Chairman. Speaker does not currently have any other requests pending besides that, and that the connection legislation sponsored by Delegate Crotty is somewhat of a separate but same component of the Navajo Gallup waterline. It's just based on requesting for specific connections. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Ms. Siako. Ms. Michelle Brown-Yazzie, do you have any recommendations, or do we need any supporting documents as far as either drafting a legislation for these amendments that is before us?
At this time, I don't think that we do, but I am forwarding to Mr. Tahi all of the documents that I referred to, the proposed amendments and the talking points. My thought is that when the Navajo Nation Council approved the project, that it already authorized all of this work to be done. And I can be stand corrected by Ms. Khan, by anyone, if I'm incorrect. But I believe that the work that was already moving forward when I came on board is something that was already authorized by council. It would never hurt to have a supporting resolution of the proposal, but that would be completely up to the committee, the council. But again, I did forward Mr. Tahi the information. I actually owe him an updated proposed amendment document, and I'll get that to him today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown-Yazzie, for that.
Honorable members of RDC, any other comments or questions? None? Okay, I believe we summarized our strategic plan here. And as a team, I believe we all do agree that we must continue to push forward to seek additional funding for this water project, Navajo Gallup's water supply project. So yeah, thank you everybody. Appreciate your recommendations moving forward. We'll have a follow-up once all the report and outline is sent to Ms. Siako and Mr. Tahi, and then they can share with us, and then we'll put it back on RDC agenda for approval, or if there's a need for a supporting legislation, then we'll request that on our part as leadership too. So thank you, everybody. I believe we're done. It is currently 11:39, and we will conclude our meeting at this time. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you.